Mark Sedra is a senior fellow at the Center for International Governance Innovation. He is an expert on Afghanistan and leads the center's global and human security program. Mr. Sedra joins us from Kitchener. Thanks for joining us, sir. What do you know, if anything, about reports of Taliban retaliation against people voting in last Thursday's election?
Well, so far I've only heard what you just mentioned, which was there is an allegation that some fingers were cut off, the fingers that featured the indelible ink that voters were asked to put their fingers in after they voted. This was a measure to ensure that they wouldn't vote twice.
So this appears to have been at least the only cases that have been reported so far of Taliban violence. But do you expect more to come to light?
Well, I think that we're going to see the Taliban move forward with their campaign of violence and intimidation as part of their wider struggle to unseat the government. The Taliban did launch a number of successful attacks during the election. There were about 73 attacks that were launched across the country, and about 23 people were killed. So, you know, this isn't violence that should be dismissed. However, it's a lot less than people expected. But of course, the insurgency is still going strong. We've only seen violence intensify over the last few months, and I expect that we're going to see continued violence in Afghanistan in the days, weeks, and months going forward.
I wonder your opinion on this. If incumbent President Hamid Karzai does win, do you think the Taliban then will look at him as someone who is going to be here to stay and therefore will be more willing to come up with a compromise, some sort of a deal with Hamid Karzai?
Well, part of President Karzai's election platform was negotiation with the Taliban. So I think that with a new mandate, he will be emboldened to talk further with elements of the Taliban movement. How receptive they will be, it's hard to say right now. Certainly the Taliban do feel in a position of strength. They've, you know, the elections is an example of that. Voter turnout was dramatically lower for the most part due to Taliban intimidation. So, you know, we'll see how much the Taliban are willing to give up in negotiations, which is going to be key because the government is going to have clear red lines on a number of issues.
One last point before we let you go here. Drugs and corruption, of course, have beset Hamid Karzai's presidency over the past 4 or 5 years now. NATO and the West have been particularly disillusioned with his presidency. Do you believe a second term will cause Hamid Karzai to clean up his act, so to speak, or maybe perhaps I should put it, clean up the act of the country?
Well, again, one of the issues that many voters expressed was important to them was the issue of corruption. And so you would think that with a new mandate, the president would be even more serious about this issue. Of course, he had 5 years to take on corruption already, and very little was accomplished. One of the disturbing signs is that during his election campaign, he reached out to many what some would say are criminal and corrupt figures in order to secure their support and the votes of their followers for the election, which would not be a good sign going forward in terms of cracking down on criminality and corruption and cronyism in the Afghan government. But I think that you will see a number of measures being taken, particularly in the first year of his presidency, if he is elected, that would at least try and demonstrate to the international community that he's more serious about taking on this problem.
Mr. Sedra, I appreciate your analysis on this.
Thank you very much.
Mark Sedra, Senior Fellow at the Center for International Governance Innovation.